I knew today was Monday when I walked into the office and saw a stapled packet on my keyboard that I did not print. On top sat a wire authorization form with my name typed in the approval line and my signature pasted under it, clean and confident, like a photocopy of guilt. I am Lana Park, Finance Operations Lead at Astero Technologies. Not glamorous finance, the kind where you fix broken spreadsheets, chase missing receipts, and know exactly which executive will melt down over a $10 variance. At Astero, that executive was my director, Calvin Red. Pastel ties, shark smile, zero shame. Vendor, Blue Harbor Strategies. Amount, 98,000. Purpose, migration consulting. Date, yesterday. Yesterday, I was home with a fever, wrapped in a blanket, drinking ginger tea and arguing with my own thermostat. I did not approve anything, and I had never heard of Blue Harbor. My chat window lit up. Calvin, quick sync at 9, bring your laptop. Also, you will be mentoring the new analyst. Mentoring is corporate slang for, we are measuring your replacement in real time. At 9, the new analyst was already in conference room C. Owen Wells. Fresh haircut, eager eyes, brand new badge glow. Calvin introduced him like a trophy. Calvin. Owen will shadow you on Orchid Ledger. Lana built the workflow. Owen. Great. I love workflows. Calvin slid the wire form toward me and tapped the printed signature. Calvin. Legal flagged this. They asked why a wire went out under your approval while you were out sick. You will help me explain, right? Right was not a question. It was a leash. Someone used my credentials. Someone pasted my signature. Someone wanted a fall person. Calvin said the vendor name again, slow, like he was practicing innocence. Calvin. Blue Harbor. I told them you know it. Owen opened his notebook and started narrating my screen. Owen. Nice macro buttons. Where do you keep vendor templates? I watched his cursor. He already had the shared drive path open, hovering over the exact folder I had not shown him yet. Not impossible to find, but not accidental either. Calvin drifted behind us. Calvin. Give him full access. He will need it soon. I gave Owen read-only access with audit logging turned on. Owen did not notice. Calvin did. At lunch, Calvin insisted on taking our visiting executive to a trendy noodle bar. Astero was courting a partnership with Hanul Group in Seoul, and their strategy chief, Dr. Seo, was in town. No interpreter arrived with him, and Calvin took it as a stage. Calvin. I have a language app. I am basically bilingual. He attempted a greeting in Korean that sounded like a blender full of vowels. Dr. Seo smiled politely. Mid-meal? Calvin leaned in and spoke Korean again. This time the words were smooth, confident, not an app. He said in Korean that I was outdated, that I would be replaced before next quarter, and that the wire issue would make it easy. He said it like he was ordering dessert. Calvin assumed I did not understand. People like Calvin assume silence means ignorance. I grew up in Daegu. Korean is not a party trick for me. I understood every syllable. I lifted my tea, took a slow sip, and felt clarity settle into my spine. Not rage, not panic. A plan. I smiled at Calvin and answered him in Korean, soft enough that only he could hear. Be careful what you promise in a language you do not own. His chopsticks froze midair. Calvin thought he was writing my exit. He had no idea he just handed me the first page of his. Back at my desk, I opened the wire form and treated it like a crime scene. People think finance is numbers. It is actually fingerprints. Every approval has a trail, and every trail has a person who believed no one would look. Blue Harbor Strategies did not exist in our vendor list. Yet the bank confirmation showed the money had already left. I pulled audit logs. My credentials were used at 6:12 p.m. yesterday while I was homesick. The login came from an office IP address, not my home network. The approval token used was the emergency override code, the one I built after Calvin once screamed about a payroll delay. He called it innovation. I called it a loaded gun. I started a private workbook and named it Calm Notes, because sarcasm is my second firewall. Tab 1, Blue Harbor. Tab 2, Override Tokens. Tab 3, Who Benefits? Owen wandered over with the cheerful energy of someone who has never been blamed for anything important. Owen, I looked at Orchid Ledger last night. I think we can remove a bunch of approvals. Less friction. He said friction like it was a bug instead of a seatbelt. I nodded and opened a training file. Not the real one, the clean one. I kept talking, helpful and steady, while my other screen captured every click he made. Owen liked shortcuts. Shortcuts are how you fall into traps. At noon, Calvin called a stand-up and announced a new campaign called the North Star Reset. He said it was about efficiency and empowerment, words that mean someone is getting pushed off a cliff with a smile. He ended with his favorite phrase, Calvin, Lana will support Owen as transition backup, just in case. Just in case is how you say, we are rehearsing your absence. That night, I followed the money. Blue Harbor had a routing number tied to a small bank in Nevada. The account owner name was not Blue Harbor. It was a holding company called Redbridge Holdings. Redbridge, Calvin Red. Subtle as a foghorn. I searched our expense platform. Redbridge appeared 3 times in the past year, always attached to projects that were supposedly closed. Each payment sat just under the automatic review threshold. He was not stealing loudly. He was stealing politely. I exported raw logs and metadata and saved originals to a locked archive. Then I drafted an email in Korean to Dr. Seo. 2 short paragraphs. A wire transfer was executed under my credentials while I was ill. The vendor does not exist in our system. The routing path connects to an entity resembling the name of a senior leader. Who in Seoul handles ethics review for partnership due diligence? He replied before sunrise, also in Korean. Send details to Eunji Han. Compliance liaison. Use secure channel. A secure channel is the corporate version of, we believe you. I sent Yoonji 1 packet, minimal and clean. Within minutes, she responded. We will need originals, not exports. We will need timestamps. We will need full vendor creation history. Her Korean was formal and deeply unimpressed. I liked her immediately. At work, Calvin hovered at my desk. Calvin. Big week. Partnership optics. Do not mess up. I smiled like the perfect employee. Then I opened Calm Notes and added a new tab. Rope. Because if Calvin wanted to replace me, fine. I would train Owen inside a monitored sandbox, and I would let Calvin keep pulling his own thread until the sweater came apart in public. I did not need to shout. I needed to document. And I was fluent in both numbers and Korean. On Wednesday, Calvin gave Owen a shiny new task and gave me a silent demotion. A calendar invite hit my inbox. Orchid Ledger Stewardship Transfer. Owner, Owen Wells. Optional attendee, Lana Park. Optional. Like a fire alarm. Calvin strolled past my cubicle with coffee and that grin that says, I am doing you a favor while stealing your chair. Calvin. This will free up bandwidth. Owen is ready. Owen was not ready to run a toaster, but he was ready to nod. I agreed. Sweet voice, calm face. Then I created a new folder on my drive. Training materials. Inside it, I placed 2 harmless guides and 1 decoy vendor onboarding package with a unique identifier embedded in the metadata. If someone forwarded it, the identifier would sing. That afternoon, Owen asked for banking templates again. Owen. Calvin said I should learn wires for migration vendors. For continuity. Continuity is a word that always shows up before a mess. I gave him a version of the template with no live links and a watermark that only appears in system logs. If Calvin used it, the watermark would shout. At 6:40 p.m., my audit monitor pinged. The decoy package had been opened by an account that was not Owen. It was Calvin, using a generic admin profile. He opened the file, saved it, then tried to edit the approval fields. Perfect. I sent Yoonji Han a message in Korean through the secure channel. He accessed a decoy onboarding package after hours, attached our access logs and metadata identifiers. Her reply was short. Good. Continue. The next day, Calvin escalated. He emailed the executive team and copied Dr. SEO with a glossy memo titled North Star Reset Early Wins. It congratulated Calvin for modernizing controls. It praised Owen for stepping up. It mentioned me once, under a bullet labeled Legacy Support. At the bottom sat an attachment, Compliance Alignment Certificate, stamped with logos, dated last month, signed by our internal compliance officer. Something in my gut twitched. I opened the PDF properties. The signature block had been lifted from a document I filed during the spring audit. The approval code was one I had retired. The timestamp was backdated using a test script I had buried in a sandbox folder. Calvin did not forge a form. He forged my form. I messaged the compliance officer, a kind man named Marco. Marco replied in 10 minutes. I did not sign that. I have never seen it. I forwarded the memo, the metadata, and Marco's confirmation to Yoonji. This time, I did not redact identifiers. Her response arrived like a closing vault. We are involving legal in Seoul. Keep collecting. Later, Calvin stopped by my desk, cheerful as a car salesman. Calvin, Seoul loves the progress. Partnership announcement at the Compass Quarter Forum on Monday. Board members will attend. Big optics. Owen appeared behind him with a binder. Owen. Lana, Calvin asked if you can send the full vendor archive so I can be self-sufficient. Calvin watched me, waiting for panic. I smiled. I will send sanitized copies. Sanitized was the polite word for everything you touch will be tracked. That night, I assembled a clean evidence package for Yoonji. Originals, screenshots, raw logs, a timeline that read like a careful fall. Then I added one more file, a screenshot of the Compass Quarter Forum invite. Because Calvin thought Monday would be my exit, I planned to make it his. Monday arrived with bright lobby lights and the kind of smiles that mean someone is lying. The Compass Quarter Forum was in the top floor auditorium. Banners, coffee, executives pretending they were not terrified of spreadsheets. Calvin wore a new suit and the confidence of a man who thinks fonts can erase fraud. Owen sat near the front with a notebook, ready to become a hero in someone else's story. I sat in the front row, centered, hands folded. Dr. Seo stood by the stage with two visitors from Seoul. One was Yoonji Han, navy blazer, calm eyes, a folder held like a verdict. She met my gaze and gave a small nod. Calvin stepped to the microphone. Calvin, welcome. Today we celebrate the North Star Reset and our partnership momentum. Slide 1, efficiency. Slide 2, alignment. Slide 3, innovation. Every slide was a buzzword parade with my work hiding under his name. Then he reached a graph and smiled wider. Calvin, under my guidance, Orchid Ledger is fully transitioned. Owen has taken ownership. Compliance alignment is strong. He clicked again. Calvin, we also resolved a small banking irregularity. A wire was mistakenly processed under a legacy approval path. We corrected it. Legacy approval path was his way of saying my name without saying my name. A hand rose from the front table. Yoonji. We reviewed the wire and the compliance certificate. Calvin kept smiling. Calvin. Great. Collaboration is everything. Yoonji spoke in Korean, formal and clear. Yoonji. The vendor Blue Harbor Strategies does not exist in records. The routing connects to Redbridge Holdings. Redbridge Holdings is linked to Calvin Red. The room went silent. Even the coffee machine seemed offended. Calvin laughed, thin and desperate. Calvin. Misunderstanding. Redbridge is a common name. Dr. Seo spoke, soft and precise. Dr. Seo. Access logs show the emergency override token used from the Office network under an admin profile tied to you. Explain. Calvin tried to pivot. Calvin. We should discuss privately. Not here. Board members began receiving printed pages from the Seoul Legal Council. Calvin looked for allies and found only paper. He pointed at me. Calvin. Lana built that token. She controls those logs. She may be sabotaging me. Owen turned pale. I stood. Slow. Quiet. No theatrics. Lana. My credentials were used while I was home ill. The login source was the Office network. The vendor did not exist in our system. The certificate was forged using my prior template. Then I turned to Calvin and spoke Korean. Calm and clean. Lana. At lunch, you told Dr. Seo you would replace me and blame the wire on me. You said it would be easy because I do not understand Korean. Calvin froze, like someone unplugged his confidence. Dr. Seo looked at him for a long moment. Dr. Seo. You used Korean to hide intent. You failed. Yoonji added, still flat. Yoonji. This is evidence, not emotion. The board chair nodded once. 2 internal security staff stepped into the aisle, quiet and final. Calvin gathered his laptop with shaking hands and walked out between them. When the door clicked shut, Dr. Seo returned to the microphone. Dr. Seo. Break for 10 minutes. Then we discuss new leadership for Orchid Ledger. I sat back down. My hands were steady. Calvin Red was finally out of language to hide behind. Owen leaned toward me, voice small. Owen. I did not know. He told me you were tired and wanted out. Lana. He told you a story that made you useful. Owen swallowed and nodded, learning his first real lesson. Yoonji passed by my row and murmured in Korean, almost casual. Yoonji. Do not delete anything. We may need more. I answered in Korean. Lana. Nothing will disappear. Not this time. After the break, the auditorium felt different. The air was the same, but the hierarchy had shifted. Dr. Seo returned to the microphone with a slide Calvin never designed, Orchid Ledger Interim Governance. Dr. Seo. The partnership review will continue. Astor Row will conduct a full internal audit. Seoul Compliance will oversee the process. Then he looked at me. Dr. Seo. Lana Park will lead stabilization of Orchid Ledger and banking controls, effective immediately. She will report to the Joint Oversight Team during the review. Owen raised his hand, tentative. Owen. I can support, if you want. His confidence was gone, replaced by humility. It suited him. Lana. Support by doing exactly what I say, and by never taking shortcuts again. The meeting ended with polite applause, the kind people use when they are relieved and embarrassed at the same time. Executives filed out quietly, suddenly careful with their words. That afternoon, my inbox filled with messages that ranged from supportive to self-protective. I saved the worst ones and forwarded them to Yoonji because honesty has a filing cabinet. Yoonji called me from Seoul through the secure channel. Yoonji. We will request device images and access reviews. Your documentation was clean. Thank you. Thank you from Yoonji sounded like a stamp on a passport. Over the next 2 weeks, Seoul Compliance combed through records with the patience of winter. Redbridge Holdings was only the first thread. 2 other shell vendors surfaced with the same routing pattern. Bonus adjustments appeared outside the window. Travel reimbursements were coded as client dinners on days Calvin posted photos from a golf resort. Calvin emailed me once from a personal address, a long paragraph about misunderstandings and loyalty. I did not respond. I forwarded it to Yoonji. Silence is also a paper trail. On Friday, Astor Row sent an all-hands message. Calvin Red is no longer with the company. They called it a separation. I called it gravity. Owen stopped by my desk with a small plant and an apology. Owen. I should have asked more questions. Lana, you should have listened when your gut did. He nodded, then asked the first honest question he had asked since arriving. Owen, how did you stay calm? Lana, I did not stay calm. I stayed precise. A week later, Dr. Seo invited me to a video call with the oversight team in Seoul. At the end, he spoke in Korean, smooth and respectful. Dr. Seo, the partnership will proceed. We want you to lead the shared controls program. There is a role for you with direct access to Seoul governance. Calvin planned to replace me. Instead, he promoted me. I made tea that night and thought about Calvin at that noodle bar, speaking Korean like it was a costume. He did not know the language had teeth. In offices like these, the loudest people are rarely the smartest. Watch the quiet ones. We know what you said. We know what you meant. And we keep receipts. My new title appeared in the HR portal 2 days later, Director of Controls Engineering. It came with a note that made me laugh, because the universe enjoys irony. Reason for change. Operational continuity. Calvin used continuity as a weapon. Now it was my shield. I did not celebrate with champagne. I celebrated by revoking every lingering admin key Calvin touched, rotating tokens, and rebuilding the override system so it required 2 approvals, one local and one from Seoul. I named the safeguard the Hangul lock, because I am petty in 4 syllables. When Owen asked what I wanted from him long term, I answered simply, Lana, learn, then teach the next person without sharpening a knife. If you want more stories where arrogance meets an audit log, subscribe or follow. It costs nothing. Unlike a forged wire, which costs $98,000 and a career,